Show-A-Versary rolls on.
Part deuce, or 3, or whatever, however this works.
As we are now at the video where we will determine our favorite games of the year. So, which one of us is going first?
Well, you have a top 10, yeah?
Yeah.
I got a top 5, so I think I went first last year, so I will let you go.
Alright. I do want to start off my list with, I have 4 honorable mentions that I want to say. First honorable mention goes to Hand of Fate, which was that game where it's randomly generated with the cards, and then if there's like a battle instance, these cards go down, your dude pops up, you beat up the goblins or whatever.
That game was super fun.
That game was cool. It's fucking awesome.
Except for when we streamed that at hard locked at the end, didn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It still had some issues, but yeah, it was really fun. I haven't played it in a while. There's probably some new stuff in the updates and stuff.
Yeah, I haven't played for a while either.
It was a fun game. I liked it. Second honorable mention goes to Mortal Kombat X. Because it is a really solid fighting game. I got more into it than I've ever gotten into a Mortal Kombat before.
I like the story mode of it.
Yeah, it had the return of the story mode, which is really cool. And yeah, I think it's so low on the list because, or it's not even on the list, because I ended up, it wasn't like really quickly, but I ended up kind of falling out of it and just kind of stopped playing it.
Yeah.
So
I think that happened with a lot of people, though.
Yeah, it just kind of fell off. I stopped playing it. I never really played it online with anybody, except for Groovy Gorgo.
Good words.
Groovy Gorgo, I played online with him, but that was like the only guy that I ever played online with. Next honorable mention goes to Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. Now, some people might be confused as to why it's not on the list. That's because I bought it on the PS4 and it was unfucking playable for about 6 months. Because it was perfectly playable, but it bugged me because it had this like little like frame hitch, little skip, like when you're going through the countryside, you'll be riding on the horse, it'll be like, and it would do that all the time, and it bugged me, pissed me off, I hated it. And I haven't played it since they patched that out and made it better, so that's why it's not there. My fourth and final honorable mention goes to Her Story, which I originally did have in my top 10 until something came out and bumped it out. But Her Story is super interesting indie game where it's completely open-ended. You have to figure out who this woman is and what she's like there at the jail, at the police office for the questioning for.
Oh, okay.
And I love the way that they did it. Like, you have to watch all the video clips that it starts you off with, and then find like a phrase or a word that would like stand out. And then you had to actually search that, and when you search that you get more video clips, so it's like you got to keep going down this rabbit hole until you piece it all together.
That sounds interesting.
And you got to do it all yourself.
Would that be something that we could play on the show?
I don't know, because when I played really bad. When I played it for a little over an hour, I think.
Yeah.
And it got to the point where my stupid brain couldn't figure out what to search up anymore.
Oh, okay.
So, like, I'm really bad at puzzles and figuring stuff out like that. So I actually just went and I had the story spoiled for me. Which, actually, the story is really a pretty interesting thing by itself. So if you haven't played Her Story, you probably should. Even if it's just for the experience of playing this weird indie game that's really different from everything else. I got my top 10 And here we go. Number 10 is Franbo.
I haven't played it, but I love the look of that game.
It's a really creepy little point-and-click adventure horror game where you play as an orphan that one night... well, she wasn't an orphan when you started. But she finds out that she comes into a room and her parents had been like slaughtered. And so she freaks out. She runs out into the woods and she collapses. And she wakes up in this little kid's mental health center. And the whole game is you're trying to get out of there, go to the woods and find your pet cat, and then go to your aunt's house. Now, I didn't get very far. I think I played, again, a little over an hour of it. I'm really bad about that. But I did really like the game. Art style was great. I just, at some point, remembered that I don't mesh well with point and clicks. Because, again, like Her Story, I'm very stupid. So, it didn't really mesh well with me with the puzzle solving and everything. But it was fun, has a cool atmosphere, and it was just interesting, so I put it on there. Number 9 is Darkest Dungeon, because it came out in early access this year.
That's fair.
That little, you get your party 4, you do a little dungeon crawling, has the permadeath and everything. But what really made it stand out was the cool art style and the fact that your characters, like, as you're going through the dungeon, they'll like freak out, and they'll have some kind of weird affliction, or they'll get like a buff from it or something like that. And it was just a really cool system. I haven't played it in a while because, again, I'm really bad about that. But it's one that lately I have been wanting to go back and play more. So that's why it's kind of stuck in my mind for this long. Number 8 goes to Rocket League.
Ugh.
Rocket League was fun as hell. Like, it feels like a legitimate, like, sports game, but it's made to be so much more fun than sports games. And yeah, Tyler, the Happy Mask Gamer, and we played a shitload of it this year. And it's just fun to just hop in and play for a little bit. Except the community online has kind of turned to shit. But that's expected, I guess. Number 7 is a game that just recently came out. And I'm really glad it came out this year so I can put it on the list. It's Super Slam Dunk Touchdown. This game I initially heard about before going to SGC this year. It's just a little game where you play as, it's like a mishmash of all sports into one. It's like, you can play as a basketball player, a football player, hockey, soccer, baseball, I think, like, field hockey, or like roller derby.
Yeah, I think that was on there too.
And there's like 3 ways to score. You either toss it into the net, through the hoop, or through the goalpost. And it's ridiculously fun. When we first played it at SGC, there was like constantly a crowd around that table.
Oh, really?
Because people would just jump on and they'd play, and everyone would be screaming and laughing and shouting. And oh man, that game was a fucking blast. I love that game. And it fully released this year, just a couple of days ago, so I'm like, I have to put it on there. I have to put it on the list. It has to go on there. Number 6 goes to a little game made by one of the guys that did the Stanley Parable a few years ago. It's called The Beginner's Guide. This game, I kind of share the thoughts on it that a lot of other people I've seen have, where it really like resonated with them, especially as a person that creates something that people see online. Because Like, I made a Facebook post about it, which was stupid, because who the fuck makes a Facebook post about anything? It had that one line that really stuck with me after I played it. Or it was something like, what would it be like to live a life not driven by external validation? And I was like, I spent a few hours after I finished the game just thinking about that line and being like, yeah, that would probably be pretty nice. Number 5 is also probably a bit of a cheat, because it came out on PC last year, but it came out on console this year.
That still counts.
So I'm still counting it. It's Roundabout.
I figured that was going to be on there.
Roundabout is legitimately one of the funniest games I've played probably ever. And it's such a weird premise. You're just a limo driver, but the limo just constantly spins. And you got to get around obstacles and deal with stuff as you're trying to drive people around in this constantly spinning taxi. But behind it, it's got such a 70s, like,
B-movie,
shitty movies thing going on behind it, but it's so genuinely funny.
I enjoyed what I played of it. I have it on PS4.
Like, I always remember the, like, what was he, like, the Swedish dude? Where you pick him up and he's like, take me to Socrates. And you have no idea what he's talking about, so you just drive him to random spots and he's like, no, this is not Socrates, take me to Socrates. And then eventually you get him to Socrates, and he's like, yes, this is Socrates. Took long enough. Number 4 goes to one of the most legitimately not funny games I've ever played, Bloodborne.
Bloodborne.
That game is, I still say it's a system seller for PS4.
Yeah,
That's
fair.
That is one of the most, like, well controlling games I think I've played. It's Dark Souls, but it's much more fast and frenzied, and you got to be a lot more aggressive with how you play it. And just the setting is so depressing and just overbearing. It really makes for just a really depressing game.
It was so depressing that we stopped playing it.
Yeah. But I still love it. From Software will always have a place in my heart.
Yeah.
Number 3 goes to Until Dawn. Probably one of the best horror games I think I've ever played. Because it takes that whole, like, 90s slasher movie thing, and it turns it into a video game extremely well. And it's just fun to sit down, play it, and just let all the jump scares get you.
There were a lot of those.
Like, the best way to play that was definitely by having a pair of headphones plugged in.
Yeah, see, I never played it that way.
Because the sound mixing in that game is fantastic.
Yeah.
I
would say that was a system seller too.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's really, another one you have to play if you get a PS4. Number 2 goes to Fallout 4. This was the game that, since it was announced back at E3, even before E3, I was touting it. It was going to be a game of the year.
Yep, you did too.
Hands down, bar none, Fallout 4 was going to be the best game I ever played all year.
I think you texted me that the second they announced it.
Yep. And I remember even like saying it on a few streams and stuff like that Fallout 4 is going to be the game of the year. Nothing's going to top it. But something did. But I do love Fallout 4 so much. I think I've put close to 60 hours in at this point. I still have half of the map to even start exploring. There's just so much shit to do. The gunplay is so, like, much more improved from 3. And a lot of people don't like it, but I like the fully voiced main characters. I think that, like, yeah, a lot of people don't like it, but I think it really helps out a lot. It's just so fun to just sit down and just pick a direction and just go and just find shit. So good. Number 1 goes to a little game made by a little studio known as Don't Nod, and it's called Life is Strange.
Oh, that game is so good.
That game was a fucking emotionally draining experience.
That's the biggest word too. It was an experience.
It was just... I said it when we were doing the LP. It was in like one of the first episodes. That first episode of Life is Strange is probably the first game ever. Probably the first game of all, like the only game of all time that'll be able to make me empathize with an 18-year-old girl.
Yeah.
Oh, it was just... There was just something special about it that
I love it.
I just couldn't let anything else top it this year. It was an emotional roller coaster. Like, emotions all over the place. And by the end of it, you're just like, the fuck do I do now?
That's how I was.
So, like we said in the finale episode of that LP, thank you, Don't Nod, so much for making such a good game.
For making grown men cry.
And we hope that Life is Strange 2 is just as good.